If you have been enjoying Edinburgh Business Stories and you want to keep up to date with some of the new episodes we've got coming out every other week, then why not subscribe? The stories, the guests we have are absolutely incredible and we wouldn't want you to miss out. Stuart, Slaine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, great to have you. Give us some context, who you are and what your business is.
My name is Slaine. I am a cosmetic dentist and I am the co-founder of The Row Dental.
And I'm Stuart. I am also the co-founder of The Row Dental. I'm not a dentist. I'm an accountant by training, but we work together at The Row.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And you're also involved with one another.
You could say that. Yeah, that's a way of putting it.
Involved there again. Come on.
We're partners in life as well as partners in business.
So I'm sure we'll hear a bit about the joys and tribulations.
I'm sure they'll come out.
Yeah.
So yeah, give us some context of The Row. Tell us how long you've been going. What's the...
We opened our doors on the 26th of January 2023. And that process to opening up took us about 2 years.
Yeah.
But I think the story probably starts much earlier than that. And when Slaine started to take an interest in dentistry.
Subconsciously was probably at the age of about 9 when I fell climbing out of a swimming pool and broke my front teeth and spent a lot of time in my youth having dental work done. I think I've had, with the exception of maybe a dental implant, every dental procedure that you can almost have. So I think that's probably where it stemmed initially. But Stuart and I met in London, which is where we were living for
10 years.
10 years prior to us moving up to Edinburgh. And I had worked in a number of different clinics in London as an associate dentist in somebody else's clinic, and always really enjoyed dentistry and didn't have a massive ambition to have my own clinic, but also always kind of saw slight flaws in where I was working and how it could be improved. And then I met Stuart, and then...
I twisted an arm. And so I guess my background, I trained as an accountant in Edinburgh with Ernst & Young, did my CA exams, qualified, moved down to London, did the whole corporate thing for a few years, interspersed with a few different entrepreneurial endeavours with varying degrees of success. Usually when they weren't successful, I returned into the warm embrace of the big corporate world. So I actually met Slaine in London. I was consulting for myself, doing sort of mergers and acquisition consultancy for businesses. We got together, got married. It was actually probably during COVID, maybe 2020, 2021. We were back up for Christmas. We were driving home to London after New Year. Had 8 hours to kill in the car. I thought, this is the time to pitch the the dental
dream.
Practice. At that point, actually, we were due our second baby, and we thought, actually, maybe London had lost its charm. Let's move back up the road to Edinburgh. So we talked about what it looked like to set up a dental practice. And, on further discussion, we thought there was a good opportunity to set up something in Edinburgh that was different, and maybe taking some of the learnings that Slaine had from working in London to back up the road.
And so when the pitch came in then, had you kind of talked a little bit about it, or was that completely out of the blue for you on the journey down?
No, it wasn't completely out of the blue, because I remember a conversation over the dinner table one night in London after we maybe just had our first daughter, and Stuart definitely kind of dropped it slightly that, what would you think about this? And I remember the comment being, I would be open to it, but I do not want to be that couple that talks about work over the dinner table every night.
How's that playing out for
you? Every night, Alan. Maybe that's the 4-year mark. It stops after 4 years. I don't know. No, I was certainly open to the idea. I don't have a background in business. My background was purely in dentistry from the age of 17. I went into dental school and worked from 22 up. So I liked the idea of having something of my own. And I thought there was definitely something that we could do slightly differently. My experience in London, I predominantly worked in 2 different clinics, one on Harley Street and one on Fleet Street, and they were polar opposites to some extent, that the Harley Street clinic was kind of what you would expect of a Harley Street clinic. We treated a lot of A-list celebrities, international royalty. It was a very, you walk in and there's classical music playing and it's very professional, and it was an amazing clinic to work in, but the clientele weren't always the easiest. Versus the clinic that I worked in on Fleet Street, which was rebranded probably around 2018, and it became kind of the clinic to go to for cosmetic dentistry, promoted very heavily by influencers and social media. So it was two very kind of different type businesses that I thought there was parts of both of them that you could fuse together and make something really special. So I liked the idea of that, and having something of our own, something that we could design completely the way we foresaw it working.
Yeah, I guess we kind of thought Edinburgh would lend itself to both aspects. I guess Harley Street trades on the name, the tradition, whereas Rue Dental traded more on self-promotion, heavy social media, heavy marketing. So we did our market research. So that was, I guess, January, driving back down the road, and we thought, right, let's look into this. And once you start looking into it, then the snowball starts to accumulate, and before you know it, we're viewing properties in Edinburgh that Easter. We did sort of debate whether it was going to be like a shop front offering. We looked at the new development down at Rayburn Place, which would be, less discreet, and then we went to see this townhouse on Albany Street, which was actually the first property we viewed, and ended up being the one that we moved into. So you see the property, you agree headline terms, and all of a sudden you're doing it. But it actually took us 18 months to negotiate the lease.
We were still living in London at that time.
We were still living in London.
So you're both still working as well?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Both still working. So 18 months just to negotiate the lease with the landlord. Our second baby was due. Kind of the timelines are all getting a bit muddled, but we weren't in a massive rush with the lease, which gave us a bit of leverage to negotiate some of the points.
We kind of knew that Delilah was due in July. We had first viewed this practice or the building in Easter, which was probably March time. And we kind of had thought I was going to work up until she was born, and then we would maybe make the move up here. But also opening a new business with a brand new baby isn't ideal. So we kind of thought we've got some time, because we didn't want to be ready and opening doors in July and me not being able to work straight away.
Yeah. So we thought you would take 6 months off perhaps, and therefore start of the year after we would get into it.
It's interesting because, it's not just a new business at the timing of a new baby, but it's a new city as well. So there's an awful lot. It's a big deal to kind of come back up and
lots of sleepless nights.
Imagine.
Thinking about that. Nobody knew. I guess, Slaine can talk to it better, but Slaine had been very successful at building her own personal brand in London. And that transcended to some extent. It wasn't just a London following. You were getting patients coming from all over the UK and Ireland, some further afield. And so that gave us a bit of comfort. But there was definitely a confidence bias there that we thought, optimism bias, we would just make it work.
And during that phase, actually, when we moved up, I had quite a lot of patients who used to travel from Ireland to see me in London. I decided that after our second daughter was born, I was going to travel to Dublin for a few days a month, just because I didn't really see the point in getting a job in another dental clinic in Edinburgh when we knew we were opening our own in the foreseeable future. So I used to travel back and forth to Dublin for 4 days a month when she was quite little, leaving Stuart with 2 girls. And
I was still working in London, or for a London-based company at this point, but based in Edinburgh.
All right.
That kept the lights on for a while.
And you talk about personal brand. How did you go about doing that? Because building your own brand
purely through social media and actually through Instagram. I started a dental Instagram page in 2017, which came about by a patient of mine who just happened to walk in the doors of the clinic and was in Made in Chelsea and didn't come to me specifically, just ended up in that clinic and I was there. And I did some work for him and he referred in through that quite a lot of his cast members. And one of them one day posted about going to the dentist on social media, and all of a sudden I had like 1,000 new followers. And at the time I just had a personal page on social media that was like, me on a night out with my friends. Yeah. So I thought, oh God, I need to take down some of these pictures and change what's on there. So I don't know, I kind of saw an opening for that. And at the time, it wasn't like everything was being marketed on Instagram. So it was something slightly different. So I started to post some pictures of dental work. And it snowballed quite quickly. There was a few of us, there was maybe 9 of us in London, all friends and dentists who said, right, we're going to try and give this social media thing a go. And we used to have, if you posted something, we'd text into our WhatsApp group saying, I've posted, can you engage in it, like it, comment on it? And that worked back then. I don't think that would necessarily work now on it. But so it grew quite quickly. And I went from kind of being a dentist where I was just seeing whatever type of patient walked in the door that day to being able to completely control the type of dentistry I was doing, which is what I loved about it.
Brilliant.
People were coming to me for very specific treatments that I enjoyed, but it did take over my life entirely for a few years. Of sitting there in the evening and, how many likes have you got and what can I post and what? And I'm delighted to say I'm well past that now. But there was definitely a few years of hard graft and trying to build that, but it paid off and it allowed me to build my own following and my own patients who travel to see me.
Do you remember getting your terms, the final terms of the lease, and you're both sat there and you're like, okay, I think this is it. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, for a long time. Well, quite vividly, because we'd lined the contractors up. So we took over this townhouse on Albany Street, 3 floors. It was previously used as office space. It hadn't been occupied for over a year. We had contractors lined up to come in the Monday to start the work, a 9-week program to convert the whole place. And it was the Friday at 4:30 p.m. where we actually signed the lease. So it was a bit frantic. But yeah, I guess, you probably weren't that involved in it. I sort of managed all that process. I think I came out of my study and said, we've signed the lease. We're good to go on Monday. And we met the guys on Monday morning at 8:30, gave them the keys, and that was the start of it.
But there was a moment where you both were like, we're going to do this though, right? Like, because there must be a point, it's all fun and you look at a place, and then there must be a point where you both sat down and said, we're going to do this. Like, we're actually gonna do this.
That went on for quite a while where we knew we wanted to do it, but there was just the lease took so long to get to a point that I think both parties were happy that I remember a conversation at one point where we said, right, if this falls through, let's just go to Australia for a year. Let's live in the sun, enjoy it, and come back and we'll try again. Because it was draining. It took so long.
I think we opened a bottle of wine that Friday night and said, right, this is the start of it. It's happening.
And did you have a picture in your mind as to what the business would look like? In terms of even like the decor and how you want, the kind of clients that you wanted. Tell us a bit more about that then.
That actually took a bit of a pivot once we opened. But initially what we thought we were going to open in Edinburgh was a cosmetic dental clinic. Okay.
And just lots of people won't know what cosmetic dental clinic means.
No.
I mean, I'm about to say
Well, I guess the treatments that I do predominantly are teeth whitening, porcelain veneers, composite bonding, and Invisalign. So anything to improve the smile. And always general dentistry comes with that naturally. You can't do any of those things unless you've got a healthy patient. So it was going to be a clinic where people came to improve their smiles, and we would incorporate general dentistry into that to make sure they were fit and ready for it. And to me, it always, we talked about looking at shop fronts, and I think from a marketing perspective, that works sometimes. But to me, I always liked the idea of having a really traditional building, the Harley Street type vibe, the plaque outside the door, you go in, it feels very luxurious. And that's what we wanted from it.
Paneling on the walls, cornice in the ceilings,
big rooms. That's what I think in London, a lot of clinics are kind of underground and you've no window. I worked for years with no window in my surgery, and you're trying to match colours of teeth to make them perfect, and you don't have any natural light. I wanted a big room with big windows. So that's what it kind of initially looked like for us. And because I think it took a while to get there, we had been doing some background marketing to build a following of patients that I had been doing through social media. So we had a kind of list of potential patients before we opened, that was the type of dentistry they were looking for. So that was...
Yeah, I guess we signed the lease and we're like, nobody actually knows anything. I mean, there's no brand, there's nothing. We need to start getting the word out. So we quickly launched a landing page, a website, register your interest type thing. Yeah. Had a few inquiries coming through. You posted it on your social media. Yeah. And we kind of thought, maybe this might work. You know, we've got probably 50 to 100 people who've registered interest. We're doing something right. There's proof that this might work. We probably thought our target demographic was going to be similar to the demographic we had down in London. In terms of 30 to 35-year-old females. Actually, in terms of, Slaine mentioned that we kind of pivoted 6 months into opening. That's because, a couple of different reasons, but our demographic was actually much broader than that. And we saw a lot more older people coming through our doors looking to have teeth enhancements. There's probably a lot less stigma now around having your teeth done. So a lot more male patients as well. But that was a pivot that kind of came about by necessity as well as through choice. So we opened our doors in January. We saw a glut of cosmetic patients. We were really busy for a couple of months. I remember driving home one day and I think we'd made over £20,000 in one day. Wow. Which for a new business was just remarkable and so exciting. And we kind of thought, we could get used to, that we could get used to this. And then it all of a sudden became very quiet, 2 or 3 months in, where we'd sort of rested on our laurels. We'd seen that initial, wait list of people. We'd worked through all them. Most of them had gone ahead because they'd been waiting so long for their treatment. And then all of a sudden weren't getting any new patients. Right. So that was definitely quite a nerve-wracking time. And actually then we had to look at different ways to get the word out that we were here.
So what did you do?
Yeah. Tried lots of different things.
We're actually very fortunate that one of our, there was a facial aesthetics clinic in Edinburgh who was well established, Dr. Nestor's clinic. They've rebranded now to Mayfield Clinic. They were looking for somewhere to stay for 12 months because they'd given up their lease on Dundas Street. So they moved in, rented 3 rooms. So we had the sort of cross-pollination of having them in the building, of their clients being able to come in, or patients coming in, sitting in our reception room, being able to show them our surroundings, talk to them. So we actually got a lot of overlap with their clients, which was great.
It's a perfect collaboration, that, isn't it?
It was. I mean, it was amazing. I remember Nestor texting me one evening saying, "Can I have a phone call?" And I was like, "How strange! What does he want to talk about?" And then he phoned me up, and Stuart wasn't there, and he was like, "We're having a nightmare." They've just built an amazing new clinic in Newington area, but their lease was being delayed, so they had nowhere to go, and he said, "Do you have any spare rooms?" And I was like, "Yes, we do." And then I remember trying to sell it to Stuart, being like, "I think this is going to be really, really good for us," and it was amazing. And they were a great team to have. I mean, we had a big building that we would have been rattling around as just me. We opened up and it was just me and a hygienist. We'd have been rattling around that, so they took up the space, and it meant that the reception room was full, and it certainly gave it a little bit of more atmosphere from the beginning, which was great.
And did this all come after that kind of initial busy period and things were going a bit low as well?
Yeah, they probably moved in a couple of months after we opened.
So right.
So it came at a good time. They paid us a bit of rent, which covered some of our rent.
Yeah.
We were able to take some of their patients.
Great.
And then we ran a free event at the Balmoral with Nestor, a joint event for 50 guests. And it was a complimentary night, sort of speed date the doctor. So we did live events like that to try and get the word out. We know Edinburgh is very much word of mouth. We put more money into marketing. So we took on a videographer, social media person full time. Well, not full time,
PR
but
agency.
We used PR, search engine optimization, CRM systems that works.
And is this you doing this then, Stuart? I mean, if you're the technician doing the work itself, are you kind of doing a lot of this? Or
so I kept up my day job until January of this year. So the first 12 months I was juggling both, but I was running the business side of things. People often say, "What's that? What do you actually do in the day-to-day?" And I'm like, "Well, took out the bins first thing, and then had a call with our marketing team, and then
Clean the toilet."
So that's me doing that.
Side
of things.
Because it's interesting, because you're obviously the technician who's got business savvy, in terms of the marketing, the personal brand, and all that stuff, and you're the business guy that's got maybe an overview or understanding of dentistry. So it's seems like a nice fit.
Yeah,
is it that perfect?
Well, people often ask that, like, what is it like working with your husband, and is there not loads of conflict, and you spend so much time together? But our job roles are so different. I mean, I go into work and I am in my surgery all day with patients, and Stuart's in an office or out meeting people, or like our jobs don't actually overlap very much during the day. There certainly has been times that it has been slightly difficult, not necessarily because our goals aren't aligning at the end, but I think I'm very much looking at it from a clinical perspective, that I want this business to be really successful, but success to me is about those patients having the best experience they can possibly have, and that they leave, yes, with the smile they wanted, or to come in and have had the treatment done that they wanted, but also that the experience was amazing. And I think when you're opening a new business and starting from Stuart's perspective, it's like get as many people in as you possibly can, because, we've got to keep the lights on. Yeah. So there was definitely maybe a little bit of conflict early on in that I was struggling because I felt there was too many patients in my diary. I can't give the quality of care I want to give, but also you don't want to say no.
I guess that's been more laterally when we kind of came out of that initial trough, which probably was 2 or 3 months. It's just gone, it's just growing much better than we could ever have expected since then. And that's where that maybe a bit of conflicts come in, where they always say the customer is always right. You say yes to everything and you make it work, but actually with dentistry, when you're providing a premium, trying to provide a 5-star service, there's a balance. You need to spend the time with your existing patients, and you can't say yes to necessarily other patients at the expense of.
Yeah, you squeeze in a 15-minute because somebody calls and say, it's a new patient, they need something, we'll squeeze them in, and you say yes, but all of a sudden your next 5 patients you're then running late for, and you don't have as much time with them, and there's a huge impact on your day. So it's maintaining quality, but trying to be as accommodating as we possibly can to anyone who wants to come in.
So what does the best experience look like then?
I think what we would like to change in dentistry is a lot about perception. Right. I think people, generally speaking, don't like going to the dentist. And that is because most people, that's maybe not fair, but a lot of the population in the UK go to the dentist when there's a problem. So dentistry is associated with pain, with being in pain, with having to have injections and everything else. And you go into, in a lot of cases, a room that has no windows and it feels a bit claustrophobic, and you're put down in a chair. And I mean, I hear the story every day of the experience of a bad extraction where the dentist put his knee on my shoulder. And, people say it all the time. And I'm like, I think they maybe think that did happen, but I don't think any dentist actually ever put their knee on their shoulder to get a tooth out. But the experience for us, one thing everybody comments when they walk in the doors, it doesn't smell like a dental clinic in here. And I think it's the really simple things like that to start with, that you walk in the doors. And we were just saying earlier, like the vision we had was that people leave the row in the same way, the same feeling that they'd have when they leave Gleneagles townhouse that you're like, that was a lovely experience. You walk in and it smells amazing. And the staff are, from the second you come through the door, the friendliest people that, you know, they can be. And the music fits in with the surroundings, and really building that this is a nice place to go, and trying to change the mindset of dentistry is there to solve a problem and be much more preventative, so that we have patients coming in every 6 months to see the hygienist, to see a dentist, that we're not necessarily treating them unless they want elective treatment. And yes, of course, we're there should they need anything more than that, but it's more about education, preventative treatment and enhancement than people coming in pain. And I think that mindset should change dentistry.
And we've considered at agonizing length every touch point, every step in the process, from the initial inquiry, who picks it up, what words do we use to speak with those patients, how do we book them in, how do we make the process of booking in, coming in the first appointment as efficient as possible. Are our dentists providing the best initial consultation? I think we're providing, you know, every new patient comes in for 60 minutes and it's a comprehensive clinical assessment. Lots of our patients leave saying, I have never had a dental checkup like that in my entire life. And that sort of feedback is great. It sort of affirms what we're doing. And then the follow-up process. So, you know, we've got different forms of communication. We use business WhatsApp a lot, which is more convenient often for patients. So we're looking at ways to make, you know, already happy patients even happier. If someone's sitting in the reception room and they're like, well, I like the smell of the room, you know, appear with a candle at the end of their appointment, our own branded candle, and say, you know, if you like the smell, then you might like this. Just make it a wee bit. Yeah. We'll probably get everyone asking for send the light the smell now. And then being sort of taking an athletic approach to any issues that might arise. Because, I mean, it's dentistry, there's lots of manual processes still in the administration. Yeah. So stuff goes wrong. Yeah. You know, stuff can go wrong. So it's how you, I guess, deal with that. Yeah. How you become aware of it, how you apologise for it, how you sort of, I try to say to the team, how you write the sort of the final chapter. Write a great final chapter for any patients that might have an issue. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I like the idea of finishing well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that. It's like no matter what the experience has been, you know, you want to finish well. You know,
that's nice.
I think that's a really interesting point. How do you balance then the line of providing an incredible experience, but not just pricing it to the point where it just is out? You know, it's just like, I just want to go to the dentist. I want to pay 400 quid. You know, like, how have you found that line? How have you played with it? What does it look like? It's great to get a free candle, but if I could have saved myself 40 quid, you know, or is that not the kind of client you want? Or, you know,
I think value, you know, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So how can we demonstrate value to our patients? We have got, our sort of roster of dentists is exceptional. Slaine has done a fantastic job at recruiting some of the best dentists in the UK in their field. So we have to convey that value to our patients. And that's how we talk to them, both, you know, in the clinic and when they're not in the clinic. And we've done research into what other clinics are charging, and we're definitely not the most expensive clinic in Edinburgh. So we're quite comfortable that we are, you know, we like to say we're providing affordable luxury.
Yeah.
And we're confident that our prices are not, you know, we're not ripping people off.
Yeah, I think there is, as Stuart said, we have looked at prices kind of across the board around Edinburgh and Glasgow. And there is some clinics that you look at and you go, how do they justify charging that for what they're doing? And equally, there's clinics where you're like, well, if they're charging that, then they can't be spending enough time or the right materials to do it. So I think we've placed ourselves in a position that we're comfortable with, that we're not feeling like we're ripping anybody off, but I think you can justify what people are paying.
We've also invested heavily in technology. So we've got state-of-the-art technology throughout the practice. Our root canal specialist, for example, has a microscope, which costs £40,000. There's probably 2 or 3 other dentists in Edinburgh who've got access to that sort of equipment. So yes, if you're coming in to get a root canal from her, it is going to cost you a few £100 more than if you got a root canal at your general dentist down the street.
Kind of makes me think now, I don't want to get a root canal without someone that's got a microscope, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, a 40 grand microscope. Yeah, if that makes it better, I'll take it. Yeah.
But so to your kind of point around building the team and attracting the talent, how have you done that then? What's your magic?
I guess that's going back to that kind of pivot in the business a little bit, where it initially started as a cosmetic clinic, and quite quickly, I kind of always had at the back of my mind, I would like to have a specialist team behind me of dentists. But it happened quite quickly because of the demographic we were seeing. We were seeing a slightly older demographic of patients than what I was used to seeing in London. And with that comes some more complexities and more root canal treatments, more requirements for implants, slightly more complex dentistry. And I think a lot of people don't know that in dentistry there is a whole range of specialties. There is a general dentist who does a little bit of everything in the same way that a GP does a little bit of everything. But we also have specialties within dentistry, which is, significant extra training in those areas. So we have on board in our team a root canal specialist, an orthodontic specialist, a specialist oral surgeon,
an implant surgeon who's got a special interest in implants.
In implants, I'm missing someone.
Well, they're going to be chuffed
there's lots. We won't send them the link. But anyway, so bringing together these specialties. So the idea is it's almost like a mini dental hospital. It's not like going to your general dentist. It's a multidisciplinary team under one roof where you have the best of the best all in one area. So how did we recruit them? A part of it, I think, was luck.
Quite serendipitous, actually.
Right. So Carol, Dr. Carol Tate is our endodontist, which is a root canal specialist. And she is, she's incredible. And she's probably the most well-known endodontist in Scotland. She has a huge number of dentists that refer root canals that they're not comfortable doing to her. And I have a few friends who are specialist endodontists from London, and I sent them a message saying, can anyone recommend somebody in Scotland? We really need one. And everybody came back to me and said, Carol Tate. So I looked her up and I was like, she's a lady she's just turned 60 this year, actually. She looks pretty comfortable where she's working. She's not jumping ship at this stage in her career. Give me someone else. So I went along to an event hosted by another clinic just on root canals. I haven't done a root canal in 10 years, but I felt a bit of a fraud, but I was there to, scope out the talent. And I walked through the door and Carol was just standing there and she said, I recognize you. And she came over and started talking to me saying, your clinic looks amazing, and I said, she just was so lovely. I felt like I could just be open. And I was like, Carol, I don't really actually do root canals, but, I really need an endodontist. So is there anyone here you could recommend that I could poach? And she basically said, talk to me later. So I kind of was like, what? No chance. Wow. So we sent her a message a few days later. She came in and met us, and she kind of said, I've got maybe five years left in my career, and I quite fancy a challenge, but I also like to work somewhere really nice. And she was having some issues, I think, where she previously was working. So she jumped ship. Wow. And with her, she brought a list of
200 referring
dentists.
Wow, that was quite helpful.
That was very helpful. So that's, I guess, a completely different aspect to the business, is that the specialist team all work on referrals from other dentists. That's interesting. Whereas my type of dentistry is pure kind of direct-to-consumer marketing.
So for cosmetic stuff, you're looking at your market and saying, there's 100,000 people in Edinburgh that might want to get their teeth done, made to look nicer. But for referral practice, you've got 250 dentists who you need to market to. So it's quite a different proposition. But great from a business point of view, because once you've got a referring dentist, it's it's repeat business. And it acts as a natural hedge for us, because you get ups and downs with cosmetic dentistry. January is quite often a quiet month. Whereas for root canals or implants or orthodontics, it's probably less cyclical. It is a bit more reactive. If you need a root canal, you've got a sore tooth, you are going to get it done. So that acts as a natural hedge for us, and probably now represents about 60% of the entire business. So that's been quite transformational for us. But Carol coming on board was great because she brought this big list of referring dentists that we can market our other referral services to, but it also gave us credibility.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, all the other dental practices in Edinburgh, most of whom would probably have known who we were by this point because we were marketing heavily, and it's a small world, as you can imagine. But all of a sudden they see Dr. Carol Tate coming on board, and it just elevated our brand. So we found recruitment after that probably a bit
easier.
It's like getting Ronaldo in your team, and then people say, "I want to be part of that." Eh? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And
So interesting.
and so how many people are in the building now?
We should have said that at the start. So we've got 9 clinicians now,
Yeah.
and we've got 7 support staff.
Yeah.
So there's 16 of us in total.
Great.
We initially put in 2 chairs, and we plumbed for another 2. We put in our 3rd chair May this year, so just 12 months after opening. And Slaine is about to take 6 months off for maternity leave, so we'll put the 4th chair in just before she comes back.
Amazing. How has what you've done in such a short period of time, how is that going to influence the next steps?
It's been, we've kind of constantly felt like we've been chasing our tails because the growth has been so significant, and because we had such a short turnaround time from signing a lease. We signed a lease on the 14th of October. We opened our doors on the 26th of January. So it was just over 3 month turnaround. That included converting a townhouse. A lot of the processes that you need to have in place, both clinical and in terms of the patient journey, we were just kind of reacting to the situation. So we'll probably try and use the next 6 months to consolidate a bit, because it will be a bit quieter because Slaine is not going to be here, and she's about 35% of our revenue. And then the hope is that when she comes back, the business is in a stronger position because we've been able to put more resources into the existing or the other clinicians, and then probably just try and maximize the footprint we've got in the existing building. And then beyond that, we'll see what the future holds.
Well, if it takes 18 months to sign a lease, you better start.
But having been through that, hopefully it wouldn't do the same next time.
Yeah.
We've definitely made some mistakes and learned from them during that process.
Is there one that comes to mind, big or small, stupid or not,
Mistakes?
that was just like, how did we not see that?
I think a lot of it was just to do with the advisors. I mean, we initially thought we would just do a lot of it ourselves. The first 6 months probably of lease negotiation, we didn't have anyone advising us really.
Yeah, we had an excellent architect. We sourced some equipment, our chairs, from a company down south, and they put us in touch with project managers who were also based down south, who just were amazing.
They were worth their weight in gold.
And
yeah.
they just ran everything for us for the whole build. They ran a tender process. We could never have done it ourselves. I mean, we'd go into the building some days, there'd be 25 people there just getting on with stuff. Tracy would come in. She was a bulldog. Really lovely.
Lovely bulldog. But,
I used to hate her calls with her every week. She'd tell us off. I don't want to go on that call today.
She would come in and crack the whip and get stuff done. So I think we've always been good at trying to take advice where required. In terms of any big mistakes that we've made, nothing that is existential.
We're still standing.
Good.
We're still standing. Recruitment's definitely been, at the start, it was the blind leading the blind to some extent. We'd never run a dental practice before. We were recruiting support staff that had never worked in a dental practice before. So the recruitment process didn't have a lot of rigor around it, and it was kind of come in, have a chat. You seem like a nice person.
Yeah.
Do you want a job?
Yeah.
So our hit rate with recruitment has been probably similar to lots of other new businesses. We've won some, we've lost some. We have put a lot more structure around the recruitment over the last few months in terms of induction, in terms of the interview process, and we're hoping that pays dividends over the time to come.
Yeah, amazing. We ask all our guests, what is your guiding principle in business?
I like to... Well, have you got one? Do you want me to go first?
You just go for both of us.
I think treating people as you expect and like to be treated yourself. And that's how, if we have an issue with, say, staff or an issue with patients or suppliers, take a step back and think, how would I expect to be treated in this situation? If I was treated the way I've been treated, how would I react? And, how could any issues be overcome? And we try to have fun as well.
We do.
Yeah. And I think even it goes back to what you said earlier around if you make a mistake, you apologise well and you end well. It's that it is that kind of just putting yourself in the customer's shoes. I like that.
Yeah. Amazing. Stuart, Slaine, thank you so much for coming on, sharing a bit of your story, and we wish you all the luck in the future.
Thank you for having us.
Brilliant.
Thanks.